If two's company and three's a crowd, four is clearly an experiment in film production with familiar names, two of the hottest film directors of their time, and one New Year's Eve never to forget. What could possibly go wrong? Well, if you're Ted the Bellboy, everything. If you're just a film lover, nothing. As we're here to prove to you that Four Rooms is not that bad. Welcome to this edition of It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies. Look, we have got a quadruple threat for you here today on the show, and with me to talk about the movie Four Rooms is my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I am all good. Now, have to have a bit of a disclaimer here before we get into talking about this. You are a massive Quentin Tarantino fan. So the fact that we are here talking about Four Rooms, does this gut a little bit?
It stings a little, but also a huge Robert Rodriguez fan. Let's not forget that.
I was about to say, yeah, like
it's the buddy rule. It's the Kevin Smith rule. Always work with your friends. And I love that this movie has both gentlemen working together side by side, creating a room of doom. Let's bring it on.
They share the glory, but they also share the pain on this one as well.
How is this a contender? How are we even sitting here discussing Four Rooms? What is wrong with the critics? Hang your head in shame. For shame.
This is very much a critics suck driven episode of the podcast, because as you're going to hear, like, this is very much one of those, the critics had one say, but the fans kind of had another. But before we kind of get into the meat of it all, let us take Four Rooms and trailerize it. On New Year's Eve, one man will learn a harsh lesson. Never say yes to being the only one working on New Year's Eve. Tim Roth does his best to prevent the worst from happening at the Monsignor, a hotel so run down, it's a wonder anyone actually stays there. Laugh along with Ted as he deals with witchcraft, murder, arson, child abandonment, hostage situations, mutilation, and having Kathy Griffin as a boss. Tim Roth stars in Four Rooms. Rated R.
That took me everything to not laugh.
It seems like such a pleasant film, doesn't it?
I have to say, I'm actually very disappointed in your write-up, Jason.
Oh, what did I miss?
Okay, so you did not give a tip of the hat to Clerks. I'm not even supposed to be here today.
Dante is not your bellhop. Although, that being said, if Dante was the bellhop, like, I could see Kevin Smith doing the Four Rooms with Dante as the bellhop. Oh,
dear Kevin Smith.
We should tag him on this one. Kevin Smith, if you are looking for an idea, create your own Four Room style with Dante as the bellhop. You're welcome.
I want to see your version of The Man from Hollywood.
Right?
Dear Kevin Smith,
absolutely,
please make this happen.
Bring all your friends. It could be one of those fun movies.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Rosario Dawson in the missing ingredient, which is Coven Room.
Oh, even bring in Melissa Benoist from Supergirl, because he was directing some of those episodes as well. Just bring everybody in.
Just bring them. Bring the whole crew.
Absolutely. Anyone who has worked. Oh, and Mark Hamill. Bring in Mark Hamill.
I could see Jason Mewes as the psychotic husband. How else do I put it?
We're basically going to, I think, in the process of this podcast and talking about the original Four Rooms, figure out, cast, and script a Kevin Smith version of Four Rooms, and I'm kind of okay with that.
We'll do the work for you there, right? Mr. Smith. Who would be Antonio Banderas's character?
Ooh, we need to
out
get
of the
into that
Smith verse.
That's a very good question. That is a very good question, and I have no clue who it would be. But let's go through who.
Ben Affleck?
Probably.
Shark from Jaws.
No. Jason Lee. Jason Lee as Antonio Banderas. Try and picture it. Maybe not. Maybe he's the man from Hollywood. Maybe he's the Tarantino.
Okay.
I could see Jason Lee's Tarantino, but let's talk about this version of Four Rooms before we continue. We'll just make a podcast separate from this and literally just send it to. We won't even put it out there. We'll just send it to Kevin Smith saying, "Here, listen to this. You're welcome." And that's pretty much how it's going to go. But this movie, Four Rooms, stars, and I'm just going to give a partial list here because there is a cavalcade of talent in this film. It stars Tim Roth, Antonio Banderas, Valeria Golina, Madonna, Ione Skye, Jennifer Beals, an uncredited role by Bruce Willis, Quentin Tarantino, Marissa Tomei, and so much more. However, there is an almost starred in this because the role of Ted, as played by Tim Roth, was almost played by Steve Buscemi.
Mr. Pink was unavailable, so Mr. Orange stepped up.
I don't know if I would prefer Tim Roth or Steve Buscemi, because Buscemi as Ted I could very easily see.
Okay, I love Buscemi. Love Buscemi. Mad respect. No disrespect here, but a lot of the physical and facial humor was made perfect by Tim Roth, and I cannot see, like,
I think near the end I could see Buscemi, like, by the time when he's done,
it would be a far darker tone.
Quite possibly. I mean, there's the scene where he's talking to Margaret before he actually gets to talk to his boss, where he's kind of recapping everything that happened. I could see Buscemi doing that part, but
here's me walking out the door right now.
Right? Exactly. It was directed by, now it's Four Rooms. There are four directors because this movie is four stories. It was directed by Allison Anders, Alexander Rockwell, Robert Rodriguez, and Quentin Tarantino. Obviously, you're going to be familiar with Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino. If you're not familiar with Allison Anders, she might be best known for directing Gas Food Lodging. And then Alexander Rockwell also directed Somebody to Love. However, this was almost Five Rooms because Richard Linklater, he of Dazed and Confused, A Scanner Darkly, and School of Rock director fame, was slated to contribute his story, but it backed out at the last minute. I don't know if Five Rooms would be too much because Four Rooms kind of felt like a decent runtime as far as this film went.
It was a good pace. It was 98 minutes, so just a little bit over a buck and a half. And I think you're right. I think the progression of the madness and the bad things that happened all in one evening to our poor bellhop, bellboy there.
Ted the bellboy.
I think you're right. I think it would have just been that little bit too much. And, an even number is always kind of, it's just easier. Like it just, and I really don't know. I mean, I would be fascinated. Do we know what that story would have? I honestly don't know.
I would be curious. If it ever was leaked, and I honestly don't know if it has been leaked or not, or if it's actually out there. What a Richard Linklater addition to this would be very interesting because just going through that list, Dazed and Confused, Scanner Darkly, and School of Rock. I mean, those are like very, very cool films. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't know what a Scanner Darkly version of Four Rooms would look like. That would just be creepy as hell. But clearly, it would have been cool either way. But I think Four Rooms made this a decent runtime. When it came to accolades, however, this one chalked up one because Madonna actually won the worst supporting actress at the 16th annual Razzies. And just to tell you how bad the Razzies, quote unquote, like this one, she beat out Gina Gershon
and Lynn Tucci from Showgirls to win the Razzie for Worst Supporting Actress. If you're beating Showgirls at the Razzies, there's something to be said about that. But I honestly think that that's a little, it might be harsh because, I mean, and we'll talk about Madonna in a little bit, but I think it's one of those things where you can't really single her out as a worst actress in the small limited screen time that she had. I think that's just kind of hating on Madonna for Madonna's sake.
I agree because I mean, really, there again, in a very small portion of the duration of this movie, I mean, what would you say, like each room was given?
You could say about 20 to 25 minutes. I mean, probably 20 minutes, and then you have to throw in 10 minutes for the credits, and then there was the scene on the phone trying to get his boss on the phone. So 15 to 20 minutes per storyline in this.
Right, and I thought her delivery was good. There was one glaring issue with Madonna playing a witch, however.
Really?
Madonna was wearing a cross in the movie. And it is widely known, or apparently a fact, that witches would never wear a cross, that they would wear a pentagram.
Now, Carrie, don't preach. It's stuck in your head now, isn't it? Carrie, don't preach. I'm in trouble deep. No,
well played. But that was just a little tidbit that I picked up in reading. I personally it was lost on me watching the movie, and then it was like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know if that couldn't even be the reason.
Ban the witch.
But I think you're right. I think people are just crapping on Madonna because
Madonna. Because Madonna. At the box office, this didn't do all that well. Now, it had a $4 million budget and a worldwide gross of $4.2 million. So, made its money back, barely, if that. Now, as far as the how it did in comparison to everything else, when Four Rooms debuted, it debuted on Christmas Day, 1995. So taking a look at the weekend box office charts for that weekend, Four Rooms debuted 18th.
Well, when I think Christmas movies, the last one on my list, and I love this movie, would be Four Rooms.
It's not like Die Hard.
Not a Christmas movie.
Just to give you a
New
perspective.
Year's, maybe.
Right. Now, the funny thing is, this still, debuting at 18th, was still the highest debuting film that weekend. Number one was Toy Story, and nothing's going to beat Toy Story, right? You had Toy Story, you had Jumanji, you had Father of the Bride Part 2, you had Heat in there. There's a very good list of films. And there is a caveat to this, and that even though it only finished in 18th, it also only premiered in 319 theaters. To put that into perspective, Toy Story was in 2,574 theaters, so it's not like it debuted to wide release. And I honestly don't know why it debuted in so few theaters. Probably because there was a smorgasbord of all this, Christmas content that was already out there. But it's limited release, so of course that's going to limit the box office take. It might have cracked the top 10 had it been a wide release, because at number 10 was The American President at just over $4 million, that box office. So put it in the same number of theaters, it probably would have done much better. So it's a limited release, so that's probably why it's still the highest debuting film that weekend, but still debuted at 18th.
I also don't know that it's a theater going movie.
Yeah, that's the thing. And when you think about the mid 90s, you had films that maybe they had a release kind of thing, but these were the kind of films that were going to find their legs on DVD and home video when people still went to the Blockbuster. God, I miss the Blockbuster.
Oh God, I'm so glad that you mentioned like the Blockbuster or the VHS copy, because did you know, fun fact, that the Four Rooms video cover was spotted in one Mr. Kevin Smith's Jersey Girl.
So you see, Kevin Smith needs to make a remake of Four Rooms in his own style with his own crew kind of thing.
He knows it. He just doesn't know it yet.
Right?
That's why we're here.
We're here to remind Kevin Smith just how much he loves Four Rooms, and so therefore he must make his own Four Rooms. You realize we're tagging him on this.
Hey Kevin, how you doing?
Hi,
Big
Kev. We would really like you to make a Four Rooms. We'll even direct one for you. No. But we'd like to go.
But if you need help with casting,
right? Speaking of casting, let's get to the breakdown here. Oh, but before we do, though, we need to talk about the ratings here. Now, audience score, which I'm assuming includes Kevin Smith, was at a 69%. So if you go by the audience score, this film actually shouldn't qualify for this podcast. However, the critics with a Madonna-sized bug up their ass, 13%.
now is that Madonna with the cone bra or?
No, that's Madonna with the cross where it shouldn't be. A 13% tomatometer. But it does have a cinema score of a B-. So, I mean, it's not like this is a bad film, but this is one of those films where the critics just did not dig it. And before we get into the breakdown, I want to hypothesize on this one here. Okay, because obviously the biggest draw of this film, I don't think, is the cast. When you think about 1995, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino are probably two of the biggest draws for people to go see this film. But when you think about the body of work that QT and Robert Rodriguez had done to this point in 1995, like we're talking post Pulp Fiction, we're talking post Reservoir Dogs. This is not those films. So I wonder if it's one of those things where critics went in expecting that typical QT Desperado style film, and they're like, I'm laughing. Why am I laughing? I shouldn't be laughing at a Quentin Tarantino film. Why am I laughing?
It's an interesting point.
It's, you know how sometimes, actors kind of get pigeonholed, right? It's like Jim Carrey does all these comedy movies like Ace Ventura and all that. Then all of a sudden he shows up in, the number 23 and they're like, oh crap, what did he do?
But isn't that by definition like acting?
Right.
That you have a range, that you're not, Christopher Walken or Gary Sinise playing Gary Sinise, playing another version of Gary Sinise.
Right.
Not ripping on Gary Sinise. I really do like him.
It's the Gary Sinise-verse where everyone is Gary Sinise.
But, right? Like, that's acting, folks. If you go into a movie with an expectation, you're not only giving yourself a disservice, but the actor who's,
Oh, I completely agree. Like
playing another role.
Actors and directors should be encouraged to kind of step outside of their comfort zone in order to be able to expand their repertoire. Critics, however, need to kind of get out of their own mental mindset. If you walked in and say, oh yeah, Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino, people are going to get shot up, people are going to get bloody, probably like, obviously it wasn't made at the time, probably like that Hotel Artemis kind of thing, or just like a, The Raid Redemption, like where just people get shot up in a hotel, and then next thing you know, there's this funky jazz swing music going on, and Ted the Bellboy is trying to manage all the chaos that's going on. It's like, this is not what I expected. And I wonder if that's just the critics going in with a preconceived notion and this not being that, and then that soured them on it.
And again, that's sad. And that's really on them. And I don't know. It's like if that's how you're going to critique movies, you might want to, I don't know.
No, we're not
consider
saying
a career change, because really take the movie for what it is.
Exactly.
And go in with an open mind, right? Without expectation. And if you don't like it legitimately for the reason that it's a stinker, then okay.
Yeah.
Right? But to go into a film, and let's be honest, this is kind of, you're right that it's so different. It is, I don't want to call it an art piece. I really don't.
It's a passion piece is what it is, because you have 4 directors just kind of having fun with, I mean, you take a look at the Robert Rodriguez directed part of it, and it's all the actors that he's used to working with, and, his own little signatures all over the place. Like they were just having fun. This felt like a movie where it's like, yeah, we're just going to do this, our way.
Yes, and I love that. And I think a huge part of it is that it was a band apart film.
Yes.
It was Lawrence Bender, Tarantino's production company, in connection with Miramax, sure. But I really think that they had a lot of power play in that.
Right.
And
yeah, the Tarantino had some muscle to flex at this point in time.
Exactly. And at that point, yeah, have fun with it. And the audience, well, at least with the audience, because the audience scores there.
Yeah, at 69%, the audience really enjoyed this.
The audience did have fun with it, and that's exactly what it was intended for.
Critics suck. That's basically what it boils down to. But
we should rename the podcast to Critics Suck.
I'm pretty sure there's a podcast out there probably called Critics Suck, but that's okay. That's their podcast where it's not that bad. Welcome to the show. Now, let's get to the breakdown here, and we need to start at the one constant of everything, and that's Tim Roth. We talked about the comparison between what it would have been like with Buscemi, but Tim Roth as Tim Roth for you, how was this?
Love him. Okay, first of all, in the credits, even just the opening of this movie where he's shedding his Mr. Orange suit and trading it for the blue bellboy uniform was brilliant.
Oh, absolutely.
The credit sequence is brilliant. It's one of those like animated, but it tells the story, and it was beautifully done. Yeah. Beautifully done. Loved it.
Almost Pink Panther-esque, that opening credit sequence.
Thank you, because I was racking my brain trying to figure out like where I've seen that stylized opening before.
Yeah, straight up Pink Panther-esque.
Yes.
And of course, like, Pink Panther, another one of those movies that, well, especially Pink Panther 2, we'll probably end up talking about this, but, what Steve Martin did to kind of bring that franchise back, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. But yes, the Pink Panther style opening. I will admit, as I was watching Tim Roth, especially in the first part, and as we do the breakdown, obviously we're talking Tim Roth now, but we're going to go through this segment by segment, because you do really have to kind of consider this as 4 different films, because there are 4 different styles if you watch them, especially if you know who's directing. You can kind of pinpoint certain things here and there. But Tim Roth, of course, is the unifying factor across everything. And I will admit, upon watching this, as we were prepping our notes and, really looking at it critically instead of just enjoying it as a movie, at first I was like, why did we like this film? Because he had a very, and it may be the best analogy I could come up with, at least for the beginning of the film. He was almost Mr. Bean-esque in his, physical performance with the quirky looks and the posing, and not really saying that much in the first part of the film. Obviously, as the evening goes on, he gets a little bit more manic and a little bit more just over it. But it did feel a little, discount Mr. Bean off the front.
Okay, but I think that was part of the humor of it, because I'm sorry, but if you're the only employee on for the night and you're catering and pandering to like just a hotel full of crazy, and it keeps getting worse and worse, and his night goes on and he descends into madness, by the time he gets by the time he's being injected with God knows what, and he has just had to deal with, the hotel is now on fire. He needs to call the police in because they found a dead prostitute. Like, And this, I mean, okay, the first scene, his day starts out quite wonderful, I think. I mean, he, hooked up with a witch. Well, why not? And and then the second one being the wrong man, being involved in some marital, I don't know,
Role play kind of thing. Yeah.
The night gets worse and worse. He gets madder and madder, and just, he is so funny. His physical humor, his delivery of his lines, like you could just tell the script writing for I almost want to call them interstitials between the movies.
Yeah.
Right? It was so funny.
I will say that because the fact that there was still a little bit of that, animatedness by the time you got to the last segment, it at least carried the personality through. And I'm glad that it wasn't Discount Mr. Bean all the way through. But that's what I'm saying. Like at first I was a little like put off, but then again, I have issues with that first segment, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think it worked to set up his personality at the beginning of the night, and then it progressed, and that worked out well. And that's the thing too. Like when you're playing this role, in 4 shorter films, basically, with 4 different directors, with 4 different touches to the whole thing, you have to really commend Tim Roth for being able to show that progression through the whole thing.
I think, too, it helped to see him as a bit of a quirky type character right off the cuff.
In almost an antiquated hotel, in an antiquated, bellboy uniform with almost the vintage Hollywood prestige that the hotel once had, and it definitely shouldn't have right now. Like it's
exactly, even the pep talk that the previous, or I guess there was a shift change.
Yeah.
Right. And then the pre-existing bellboy was giving him kind of almost, I don't know if it was an advice session or a pep talk, or if it was part of his on the job training. I don't know, because was it his first night?
I can't remember. It was like, I don't think it was, but it's one of those things where, because they would not leave someone on their first night alone on New Year's Eve. There's no way that could happen.
Well, and all I can say is, how is it possible that all of this is happening sequentially in one night in one hotel? I mean, that's the worst shift you've got to take.
With some crossover, but we can kind of get to that in a little bit. But yes, I think for 1995, he is the best actor for this role. Buscemi would have been okay, but I think it was more fun with Tim Roth in that role. I think you're spot on that one. Let's talk about the first part of this, the missing ingredient. Personal opinion, this is the weakest of the 4 segments, but there are still silver linings in this. You're giving me that look like you don't think so.
I would say The Wrong Man was my weakest. Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
There was just something about this segment because, I mean, to a point, because how, what happens to Ted in this. By the way, we're going to spoil the crap out of this film, but
if you haven't seen it already,
yeah, you are at this point 27 years behind.
Go find the VHS copy.
Go find that one Blockbuster in wherever it is and go rent it. That's all I got to say. But I think as far as the casting went, and this is the part with Madonna in it, and we're talking 1995 Madonna here. So we're talking, a high level, like A-level actressing, probably shortly after League of Their Own kind of Madonna, before we had the disaster that was Swept Away. You still had top level Madonna, but it felt like she was there barely.
You know what? First of all, I liked this. This would definitely be my 3rd favorite, and that's only because there's no competition, no contest between Tarantino and Rodriguez's portion of this. So really, out of the last 2, this is my favorite. And I love the introduction of all of the characters. I think this definitely had to be the first of the stories that they tell, just because of how it,
It does.
the entrance that each one of the witches made really displayed their personality.
It does ease Ted into the evening, because I think if you did start, I mean, personally, if I'm talking strength of segments, I would probably start this with the wrong man, and then go into this, and then go into the misbehaviors. But I think, again, for me, this one felt the weakest, but it does make sense to ease him into it. And you had phenomenal actresses in this. You had Valeria Golina and Ione Skye. I mean, Ione Skye was brilliant in Say Anything, and it was really good to see her in this as well. And just the interplay, I think, between her and Tim, because she's got to get with Ted so they can finish the spell, kind of thing. And there was a sweetness to it. I think it had to be Ione Skye with Ted, because I don't think any of those other witches that would have played as cute as it did.
No. And I loved Lily Taylor. I loved how she basically she was so confident, and she just went into the hotel and she's like, I just want you to know I know where I'm going. She just commanded. She was, I think, the strongest and probably the smartest of all the witches.
And that was kind of nice too, because that meant you had a Lily Taylor, Ione Skye reunion from Say Anything, which, all honesty, Say Anything is one of those, pitch perfect romantic comedies from like the 80s. So to see those two back together again, that was kind of cool. And Valeria Golina, I mean, if you don't know who she is, go watch Hot Shots and Hot Shots Part 2, because she is priceless in that. But as like the leader of the witches, in order to be able to bring their fellow witch back from being turned to stone, you know what it is? And I think this has to be pointed out. And this is just from a pure like sound geek point of view, is that, and I think the part of the problem with why I didn't like this segment so much is the sound in it, like the sound effects, the almost Bewitched style kind of noises when they're doing all their spells and whatnot. I'm just like, really. But
I thought it was cute. I thought it was absolutely perfect for what it is. And I think Bewitched might be
at least as far as a sound design.
But I mean, again, it could have been so much darker. Like with having,
but it couldn't have been guard. Yeah.
Well, no, but they made it fun. Mm-hmm. They made it fun, and I think that was, it was fun. Mm-hmm. It was so much fun.
It did have some of the levity of, and of course, going later, 20 plus years into the future, like some of those early episodes of WandaVision where it had that lightness to it, which, yes, absolutely, if you're going to ease Ted into a night of insanity, this is definitely the way to go.
And their potions, or their little limericks.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Were so cute.
The scripting was actually quite fun. Yes, I will give you that. Let's move on to the next segment. The Wrong Man.
Not my favorite.
Not your favorite,
no.
Huh? So,
and I don't think I would have led with that one either. I can't see how that would have, because again, it was the introduction of all of the witches. It was the introduction of Ted, and and he had to start the night off like on a good note, because he went into this room. Room
404.
This was 404, and not 409.
No, 404 was not found.
Never go to 404.
Right now, there's a bunch of internet geeks going, oh, they can't find 404. Because, of course, that's the internet error code for you can't find something.
But I think it was important for Ted to go into that situation pretty happy. He started out happy anyway.
Well, Ione Sky has that effect on people, right? But I will say, as far as The Wrong Man goes, and I know you weren't a fan of this segment as far as in comparison to the other three, but David Proval as Siegfried, the husband, he really was a ton of fun to watch in this.
He was manic. Man, he was all over the place. I couldn't tell if he was like, I don't know.
Hopped
if he was
up on
gonna
something.
snap at some point, or if he was actually going to die. I don't know.
This is why you don't do drugs, kids. Just don't do that. But of course, it's it also had Jennifer Beals as the wife who was tied up. By the way, who is the only person who appeared in two different stories in this film. But I think the play between David Proval and Jennifer Beals, the fact that this was like I'm here and you're going to play along because this is what we do. Like, her calmness counteracted his manicness, I think, very well.
Well, interestingly enough, Jennifer Beals was actually the wife of the director, Alexander Rockwell.
Yeah.
At this point.
I did not know that.
Divorced a year after this movie came out. So maybe, I don't know, maybe she improvised the the final spiel on
Well, I mean, if bondage is what happens on Bring Your Wife to Work Day, I'm sure there's a reason there.
Yeah, I didn't appreciate you tying me to the chair here.
You're going to sit, you're going to watch this, and you're going to like it. By the way, this is what I have to do for most sci-fi films. Tarantino, we're fine. She's good. She'll sit down. You want to watch a Star Trek? Get the buttons out there and tie her to the chair.
Star Wars, the toothpicks are actually implanted into my eyelids.
Anything done by the Asylum, I'm just actually using staples on her eyelids. It's kind of like a Clockwork Orange with it's like, welcome to our world. This is how we movie here. It's not that bad. But it definitely did bridge, I think, very well too, because this is the start of where things start to go downhill. And if you're going to order it this way, then yes, this has to be the beginning of the downhill slope for Ted. I will say, and I need to point this out too. Actually, no, I'm going to point this out on the next segment because Twitter did speak about this one as well. I'm
intrigued.
Carrie did have to look away at one point when Ted was kind of half hanging in, half hanging out of the bathroom window. By the way,
long-haired yuppie scum.
He works at the hotel. I need to point this out. Ted works at the hotel. He knows he's in room 404, which means he's on the 4th floor. Where the hell was he going, hanging out the window? Seriously.
Okay.
Where did you think you were going to go?
Interesting, because I was wondering how many floors this hotel actually had and what floor the penthouse would have been.
It didn't look that high a hotel considering where the arrow was when they showed the exterior, which, okay, I will admit I laughed at that little thing. I have a thing for font humor. I will fully admit font humor is my jam. I get it. It's fun. Again, a Kevin Smith reference when Mark Hamill comes out in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It's like, hey kids, it's Mark Hamill. Like, again, font humor all day long. Kevin Smith, please do another 4 rooms. That's, again, we're just putting it out there. I think the segment I personally associated with the most is the misbehaviors, because I don't know how many times I can hear Antonio Banderas in my head when I say to our children, don't misbehave.
Don't misbehave.
Oh my God, this was so much fun. Your thoughts on the misbehavers?
Oh my God, I loved it. What I loved, I think, even more was when he did the little tip of the hat to this movie in Spy Kids 2 with the hair combing scene. Mm-hmm. But There's so much to unpack here with the misbehaviors.
I will say, and I'm glad you brought up Spy Kids because I actually had this in my notes, is that it just goes to show how good a director Robert Rodriguez is. You know the old saying in movies, never work with animals and never work with kids, right? Robert Rodriguez, as a director, has a way of bringing out some really fun performances with kids who are just breaking into the business. Because for the kids, Danny Viduzko, again, I apologize if I butcher any names, Danny Viduzko and Lana McKissick, this was, for both of those kids, this was their first movie. Danny Viduzko also starred in The Crow City of Angels later on, but hasn't acted since 1996. Lana McKissick, however, still acting today, doing some TV work, doing some voice work, including the voice of the Mistress of Flame in Transformers: The Combiner Wars. So anytime there's Transformers mentioned, I have to mention Transformers. So that has to kind of go out there. And of course, obviously, Antonio Banderas. I mean, there's just that working relationship, that friendship between Robert Rodriguez and Antonio Banderas. And he looked like he was having so much fun with that role.
Oh my God. So much fun. And again, keeping it real with the Kevin Smith rule, you work with your friends. Mm-hmm. And I love too how Selma Hayek was the dancer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
She was called in basically as a favor, if you will, they realized that they needed a dancer to flip the channel.
When you need a sexy dancer, you call Selma Hayek.
Call Selma Hayek. And I love that, again, it's the work with your friends rule.
Also, Kevin Smith knows that if you need a sexy dancer, you call Selma Hayek, going back to Dogma. There you go. We are talking a whole ton of Kevin Smith in a movie that Kevin Smith is not really, even remotely involved in, and I'm all here for it. But it's like this movie, again, this is when the manicness really kind of kicks in. Every parent, I think, can relate to this part of the film. It's, again, to me, it's the second best part of the whole movie. But yeah, there's just such insanity that goes on. And first of all, what parent leaves their kids in a hotel to watch TV with the bellboy chicken in every half hour? Like, something, you don't leave your kids for 5 minutes, let alone half an hour intervals with the bellboy checking in.
Yeah. Well, okay. Did the little guy not grab the lit cigarette and smoke it in front of his dad?
Well, clearly the father is not exactly father of the year, but there's some bad choices there to begin with, yes. But yeah, like you had to expect something bad, but the whole segment, I mean, the kids played it up so well, so much fun, and just the you're going to do what my dad says you're going to do, and you're going to like it because we paid you $500. Also, clearly, Ted will do anything for money. Let's see here. He's going to have sex with a witch in the first segment. Did
he get paid for that?
He remember? Because as the witch, he came in, and the witches gave him a little extra money to make Ione Skye happy.
To make her smile.
Of which then he starts to do his whole Mr. Bean thing, which was just so awkward and funny and cute.
I genuinely think that they had a little bit of a crush thing going because he did promise to call her after.
Well, remember too when they went up in the elevator, he couldn't stop kind of looking over at her because
he was bewitched.
He was absolutely bewitched. I don't have that sound plugged into my board. Okay. But yeah, the misbehaviors is just such chaotic fun. This is where Twitter has spoken, though. Sean Faust has chimed in with, vomiting after finding the dead hooker is incredible. Full disclaimer here, dear listeners. My lovely wife, Carrie, cannot, for the life of her, watch a vomit scene in a film.
Nope.
It triggers the sympathetic reflex. Like to the point of like when we did The Bubble, when we watched The Bubble for the last episode, it was, that because that scene comes up and like everyone's vomiting on everyone. And it's like, yep, nope. Just tell me when it's done. Tell me when it's done.
Yep.
Full disclaimer, Carrie and vomit on TV, just not good.
Not good.
Not good.
No.
Although definitely needed to happen because that's all part of the freaking, and I'm surprised he hadn't vomited himself earlier when he got vomited on in the previous thing. Clearly bellboys deal with a lot of vomit, apparently. But this is why you're not the only one to work on New Year's Eve. Never. Moving on. Actually, before we get to The Man from Hollywood, we need to talk about that phone call to his boss. And the fact that that's Marissa Tomei as Margaret who picks up the phone first. This, what's funny? I will admit, my favorite part was The Man from Hollywood. Misbehaviors is up there. I think that phone call segment, I thoroughly enjoyed more than the previous two segments.
I loved it. I absolutely loved that it tied, like it really was kind of that recap of the movies thus far. Mm-hmm. And it led so beautifully into the penthouse scene.
Yeah. And it's almost like, when you're playing pinball and you have to pull the plunger back in order to be able to shoot that last shot, and it's your last ball. So you put a little extra into the plunger in order to be able to shoot it out. This kind of felt that way. Just that recapping the whole night, realizing just how much of a night it's been, aside from Ione Skye. But like really, this, it's the build up to the finale, and I think it needed to happen. And the fact that people were playing like Rambo on a Nintendo or a Sega Genesis or whatever they were playing, like it's just so New Year's Eve 1995. Everyone is completely wasted, and all you can do is play Nintendo.
Well, interestingly enough, did you know that a lot of the actors, mm-hmm. and I say actors with finger quotations, those were actual friends, film friends of Quentin Tarantino's.
Yeah.
Brought in for the role.
It just goes to show how much of a passion project this film was. Like this wasn't meant to be a big cinema film. This wasn't meant to be, Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs. This was supposed to be for fun. This was fun, and clearly everyone was having fun. We talk about Tarantino. We now need to get to The Man from Hollywood. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that Bruce Willis was uncredited for this film.
His hairstylist was, though.
His hairstylist was. But that's because he didn't get paid for this. But the Actors Guild didn't like that. So he was like, all right, well, don't credit me. And they're like, okay. That's legit. So again, passion project.
He's Bruce friggin' Willis, though.
Right?
Like, does he need to get paid for this? He was doing a favor for his friend.
It just goes to show how freaking cool Bruce Willis is.
The man.
Absolutely. But yes, let's go to you, The Man from Hollywood.
The Man from Hollywood, interestingly enough, was based on the writings of
Roald Dahl.
Yeah, right?
Like, Roald freaking Dahl.
Actually, the Man from the South. Mm-hmm. So, when I read that, and that was only recently that I uncovered that little tidbit of information, I originally thought that it was Tarantino having fun, kind of just showing, the the dark and insane side of having way too much money. Mm-hmm. But then when I read that, I was like, oh, because then I'm like, it kind of took away a lot of, the creativity or the
spontaneity of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll admit, I was watching, aside from really appreciating Tarantino dialogue. And then let's be honest, that is the biggest selling point to a Tarantino film is Tarantino dialogue. And this is all the Tarantino that could Tarantino in this short segment. But as a film geek, as a production geek, I really, really appreciated the length of the one takes in this, like all the steady cam work, the fact that it felt very roaming point of view-esque, and you didn't really see too much of that as far as the rest of the other segments. And it really kind of stood out, not just as a story point, not just as a what's going on kind of thing. Also, Ted will do anything for money, proof positive once again. And you notice how the page just keeps going up and up and up. But as far as a production geek goes, to see that many long takes through the whole thing, which means that all the actors were either improving, or I'm sure there probably was some improv in it with regular beats, and then everyone was just kind of riffing along the way. Like it felt so, I don't even know what the word is, but it just played to the film geekiness that Tarantino has.
Absolutely. I mean, the scripting, exactly how it was written, was to essentially reenact something that.
So the whole thing is like they're partying in this hotel room in this penthouse, drinking Cristal, and then this, I think it's like a Twilight Zone episode comes on, where this bet happens in the episode, so they decide to make the bet in real life, but then they need someone to be the axe man, the hatchet man, right, the cut guy, to chop off the finger if the guy doesn't complete the bet,
to light the cigarette,
to light the Zippo 10 times, the lucky Zippo. And you can see stupid rich people doing this kind of thing in a penthouse on New Year's Eve because they're stupid and rich. That's kind of the beautiful absurdity of it. But again, I'm just always appreciative of the different film styles that Tarantino brings in, and I think that's why. Speaking of Tarantino films, I personally preferred Kill Bill Volume 1 over Kill Bill Volume 2. I realized Volume 2 had more of the Tarantino-esque dialogue. Volume 1, however, showcased more of Tarantino's appreciation of different cinema styles, and this really played into that as well. There is a crime in this film, though. Not in the film, but this film is the subject of an absolute travesty.
The dead hooker that moves and breathes?
No. And it's related to the Oscars. I'm going to put two words together, and we'll see if you click in. Combustible Edison. The band that put together the soundtrack for this film. First of all, the main theme song, Vertigogo, is, if you're not humming that song after watching this, there's something wrong with your ear holes.
It was actually used in Secretaries. I'm not familiar with the show, but it was played in one of the characters' cars.
But here's the thing, okay? The song, Vertigogo, was submitted for consideration for an Academy Award, but it was disqualified by the Academy. Okay, because of, quote unquote, this is according to IMDb and Wikipedia, because of its incomprehensible lyrical content, despite the fact that the band submitted a lyric sheet with their best written approximation of the lyrics. So however you write down, like, I get it, but no. That song, catchy as hell. And to make things worse, okay, I got a beef to pick with the Academy on this one here, because the winner of Best Original Song that year at the Oscars was Colors of the Wind from Pocahontas. And if you want to know how absurd that is, it beat out You've Got a Friend in Me from Toy Story? How does Colors of the Freaking Wind from Pocahontas beat out You've Got a Friend in Me? And Vertigo isn't even allowed into that. You also had Moonlight from Sabrina. You had Have You Ever Really Loved a Woman from Don Juan DeMarco, which, yes, that's still peak Bryan Adams working with Michael Kamen. And Dead Man Walking from Bruce Springsteen. How do you not put Vertigo, which really, and I'm going to say this here, most of the fun from this film lives and breathes in that soundtrack. And if you don't have that soundtrack, you don't have the fun of Four Rooms. Like the incomprehensible lyrical content? Really? No. Like, yes, I get it.
Have they heard most mumble rap?
Right? Right? Like, okay, award shows
Cannibal Corpse? No?
Award shows get so much wrong. Looking at you, Grammys, and your Jethro Tull Best Metal, award over Metallica, but
okay, there is just always, every year, doesn't matter. There's always something so wrong about the decisions that they make in who wins and who, isn't even a contender.
How does You've Got a Friend in Me not win, though?
And that is the major question.
I can accept Vertigo not winning the Oscar. I'm fine with that. But you to completely, say no. I don't understand what they're saying. They're not saying anything. It's scat. It's jazz. It's not supposed to be lyrics. Like, no. Like,
yeah.
Really?
I think, and again, I'm just putting it out there, thinking out loud, is that, well, maybe because it had really, it didn't compare to anything. Like, because it was so unique, it would kind of be in a category of its own.
I mean, I could understand if I think the Academy might have accepted them more on Best Original Score, but it's no, like
just no.
Vertigo is an utterly catchy song, and the number of times it's been used in different things just goes to show how good a song it is. The fact that the Academy turned this down as best for consideration. It's one thing it doesn't win. It doesn't win. But you don't even consider it because you can't understand. Like, really? I'm get off my lawn. Tell the Academy to get off my lawn, because that's a crime. That is a crime. But the Combustible Edison Four Rooms soundtrack to you, like how important was this for you in regards to this movie?
Well, I have a CD copy.
Mm-hmm. So do I.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I use this in college for projects. I will admit. But yeah, it was because it was just so out there and different and fun. And again, if you just have a general, typical orchestral score, this isn't as fun.
Well, I mean, that's the ongoing theme with Tarantino music that he picks for his movies.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's not your, top 40 radio play.
Yeah.
He digs in the crate and brings out stuff that
it's a signature for him.
It is.
Very, very much like it is for James Gunn when you think about the soundtracks to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, because that's, again, is very much a storytelling device. If you take a look at Baby Driver, the soundtrack there is also a storytelling device. Combustible Edison's soundtrack for this is as much a character of the film as the characters in the film.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
And you don't have as good a film without it. So now in looking at all of this, now I'm just curious. I'm gonna put this out there because, again, this is 4 different small films as far as, as a whole, the critics looked at this at 13%. So now I'm gonna turn you into the critic here. If you had to grade each story, how would you grade them?
The Wrong Man, yeah, it was very low for me. I would give it the 13% for
Really?
The Wrong Man.
See,
It did nothing for me.
I think I'd give The Wrong Man probably about a 55.
Wow, that's high. Then next, The Missing Ingredient, I would probably put it at an even 50.
See, I'd bring that down to about a 35. Again, only because it didn't mesh with me as well. Although I will give bonus marks for both Valerie Galina and Ione Skye. I think those two were the best part of that.
I thought it was a fun segment. So then that leads me to The Misbehaviors. And I loved that. I thought the kids were so brilliant and so confident. You know, if that was their first movie and, okay, picture it. You're maybe between 8 and 10 and you get
about that, yeah.
brought into a film set.
Your first film.
You win the audition, you get called back, and okay, kids, we're going to have you pretend to smoke, drink, light a hotel room on fire, and basically, was it like a gangster attitude? My father paid you to take care of us. It was, not only that, children, but you're also going to find a
death hooker and stab a bellboy and with a needle in the leg.
Yeah.
And
I love the line too where Tim Roth is on the phone with the police and he was calling in the body. And he's like, "There's a dead whore. Don't call her that." Like, oh my God. Love. I thought the children were brilliant. Oh my God, they earned what? I would give that in the 70s, 80s.
I'd put it at about an 81, 82.
Yeah.
Would have been higher if I didn't have trauma every time I hear "don't misbehave."
You know what? Antonio Banderas was amazing. The actress who played his wife, there was something so cold about her that I was just like, are these even her children? Like, it literally made me... Like the line where she's like, "These kids are getting expensive."
There's a backstory there where it's like...
I was like, I don't know, man. Is she like she's like the stepmom?
It felt like she was the stepmom, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, she couldn't care less about those children and she just wanted to go get her drink on.
I will say, and before we get to the Man from Hollywood, as far as ranking that one goes, I will say that I like the fact that they didn't spend, too much time, giving you backstory on all these characters. And no, you're with Ted and you just get like parachuted into these situations, not knowing anything of what's going on. And the viewer kind of needed to be as discombobulated and, stranger in a strange land as Ted was in every single one of these situations. I think that part, the fact that they didn't backstory too much was very well done on all four segments parts.
Well, speaking of backstory, what the hell was the deal with Madonna and her daughter?
With her daughter, with Alicia Witt, yeah. I'm not quite sure, and it wasn't really explained, but I think, and that's maybe part of why Madonna got singled out, because there was this dangling storyline that didn't really need to be there. It really didn't. It didn't, because Ione Skye is the story in this one, and it felt like it was almost overshadowed a little bit by Madonna's presence and Alicia Witt as her daughter. I'm with you on that one. And maybe that's why it also didn't stand out, because there was so much that could be there, and maybe it just needed to be streamlined. But again, that's just me. I'm the grumpy guy who's still mad about Combustible Edison. Man from Hollywood. You're ranking this one. What are you giving this?
Loved it. Well, if I gave The Misbehaviors and into the 80s, and I agree with your 81, to me, this made the movie. This was the segment of the movie. And not just because I'm a huge Tarantino fan.
But you are.
But I am. But really, this, it was so the cherry on the top of a wonderfully iced cake.
The perfect curtain drop.
Yep.
Absolutely.
This is the cherry on the marzipan on the, fluffy white.
And this is
vanilla
why
cake.
You should eat before we do a podcast, because clearly you're hungry.
Cake.
Cake.
So I would give it, oh my God, I would definitely put it in the 90s. Now, before I say that, what was the audience score? It was still in the 60s,
The audience score was 69%.
I have really set the bar with the 80 on The Misbehaviors. So with that said, I have to give it at least 10% more. I'm looking at the 90s.
Yeah, I would say it's about a 90% right there. And I think if you take a look at the balance, 69% as an audience score for the whole movie makes a lot of sense. Critics are wrong. But now it's time. It's time. Carrie, who is your MVP without stalling?
Yes.
Of Four Rooms?
No contest. I would give 100% to Mr. Tim Roth, Ted the Bellboy.
Not surprising. Not surprising.
His delivery, his humor, his facial expressions, his, like I said, just how he carried through or interwove these stories and played it so incredibly well. His recap on the phone with Kathy Griffith, he was amazing. He was so funny, so entertaining to watch.
For me, the MVP is not on screen. For me, the MVP is Combustible Edison. I am not just because the Academy snubbed them, because the Academy. Okay. There's something about when a score becomes more than just music in the film, when it in itself is a character. And you take a look at the Christopher Nolan Batman films, the Hans Zimmer score for that is as much of a part of the storytelling as Christian Bale is as Batman. You think about Star Trek, right? You say Star Trek, the first thing you hear is it's either the original Star Trek, like the Alexander Courage opening theme, or you're hearing the Next Generation theme song. Star Wars, you're hearing that opening John Williams fanfare. Jaws, the shark, and the dun dun. Like, again, that in itself is a character. I think Combustible Edison deservedly needs to be recognized by, I will be the Academy and say thank you for creating such a not iconic, but definitely a character driven or driving soundtrack for this. You now need to go back and listen to this, don't you? It was such a fun soundtrack. It was such a fun movie, and definitely worth the rewatch. Forget what the critics say. The audience is right. You're going to have a ton of fun if you watch this. Now, you guys know the drill. If you think there is a movie out there that is unfairly maligned, or that is just so bad that there's no way in hell that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on Twitter at NotThatBadCast. Let us know. We'll watch it, we will dissect it, and we will find the good things to say about those movies, the A grades in those B movies. Carrie, lovely as always. We will go get you the cake. Kevin Smith, thank you for listening. Hopefully you go off and make that film. This is It's Not That Bad. Until next time, everyone, take care.
Hey folks, Stefan Shirazi and Renee Richardson here from the Metallica Report.
And we are proud members of the Pantheon podcast family, where the best of music and podcasts unite.
We've got something pretty cool for you. We're giving away an exclusive Metallica merch package worth over $250.
That's a whole lot of Scary Guys, Skulls, M72, and other sought-after Metallica swag. And we've made it easy for you to win. Follow and share the Metallica Report, and you're in the game. Go to pantheonpodcast.com/Metallica, enter your email, and hit that button to be entered to win.
And just like that, you're eligible for our monthly exclusive Metallica merch package.
And guess what, rockers? You can enter every month, so just do it. And while we love our global brothers and sisters, the lawyers won't let us ship outside the U.S.